I realized at that moment right then that Owen was gone.
Jerry Lawler's voice trembled as he finally broke his silence about the darkest night in wrestling history. But he wasn't alone. Bret Hart and several other wrestling legends also revealed what truly happened during Owen Hart's final moments. What they shared would change everything fans thought they knew about the tragedy, and one legend's initial suspicion is guaranteed to shock you to your core. On May 23, 1999, the wrestling world was forever changed when Owen Hart, one of the most beloved performers in WWE history, fell approximately 78 feet to his death during a pay-per-view event at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. He was just 34 years old, a devoted husband to Martha, a loving father to his two young children Oyai and Athena, and a man whose infectious laughter and legendary pranks made him the heart and soul of every locker room he entered throughout his remarkable career. Perhaps no one felt Owen's devastating loss more deeply than his older brother, Bret the Hitman Hart. The two had grown up together in the legendary Hart wrestling dynasty in Calgary, Alberta. Trained by their father, Stu Hart, in the infamous Hart Dungeon, both brothers reached the absolute pinnacle of professional wrestling through years of dedication and sacrifice. Yet Bret's reaction to Owen's sudden and tragic death would reveal a darkness and paranoia that few could have ever anticipated from the Hitman.
Where were you when you heard about Owen?
I was on an airplane. I was going to do the Jay Leno show.
Bret was literally thousands of feet in the air when the unthinkable happened to his baby brother. He was in transit, scheduled to make a surprise appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, when word reached him that his younger brother had fallen from the rafters at Kemper Arena in Kansas City. The shock was immediate, visceral, and utterly devastating, unlike anything he had ever experienced in his life. But what followed was far more troubling and unexpected. In the 2024 Netflix documentary Mr. McMahon, Bret made a stunning admission that sent shockwaves through the wrestling world and beyond. He confessed that, for a long time after Owen's death, he harbored deep and consuming suspicions that Vince McMahon may have orchestrated the entire incident as a form of twisted revenge. In Bret's grief-stricken mind, the timing felt impossible to ignore. Just 2 years earlier, he had been betrayed by McMahon during the infamous Montreal Screwjob, an incident that completely shattered their relationship and sent Bret packing to rival promotion WCW. Owen, meanwhile, had remained with WWE despite everything, but the tension between the Hart family and McMahon was palpable to everyone involved.
I don't think if Vince had dropped little Stephanie from the ceiling, I think he would have stopped the show.
As far as the next night on Raw, what were your feelings watching that show?
I didn't like it.
Bret's paranoia was fueled by overwhelming grief, painful family divisions, and the deep wounds left by Montreal, wounds that had never truly healed. He accused WWE of being slimy and of exploiting the tragedy for ratings and publicity. The tribute show that aired the following night on Raw, he believed, was exactly the kind of thing a rotten wrestling promoter would do to capitalize on death. However, as time passed and concrete evidence emerged through multiple investigations, Bret eventually retracted his murder suspicions entirely. In the 2020 program Confessions of the Hitman, he stated, "I do believe in retrospect, Vince had probably very little to do with what happened to Owen, like he barely even knew what was going on there." He emphasized that he no longer held McMahon responsible for Owen's death, though the deep resentment over the Montreal Screwjob continued to linger like an open wound. If Bret Hart represented the family's overwhelming grief and suspicion, Jim Ross represented the impossible burden of having to inform the entire world while simultaneously processing his own devastating emotions. As WWE's lead announcer and the unmistakable voice of professional wrestling, JR was thrust into the most difficult broadcast of his legendary career without warning or preparation. Ross had noticed something distinctly different about Owen Hart that fateful day at Kemper Arena. Backstage, Owen appeared subdued and unusually uneasy about the stunt he was scheduled to perform. Unlike his usual jovial, joke-cracking self, there was a quiet apprehension about him that was impossible to ignore. Owen had confided his nervousness about the rafter descent to colleagues throughout the weekend, though he never outright refused to perform the dangerous stunt despite his obvious concerns. The moment everything changed is permanently etched into professional wrestling history. Ross was seated at the announce table with Jerry Lawler when the arena went completely dark for Owen's scheduled entrance. A pre-taped promo featuring the Blue Blazer character played on the massive Titantron while Owen was supposed to majestically descend from high above the ring. Then came the words no one in attendance, or watching at home, was prepared to hear. Something went terribly wrong. This is not part of the entertainment here tonight. This is as real can be. Those haunting words, spoken by JR in real time as chaos unfolded around him, marked the exact moment the line between wrestling entertainment and devastating reality was completely obliterated. Ross learned of Owen's death through his headset from producer Kevin Dunn just seconds before he was forced to announce it on air to millions of viewers. The countdown was brutal and unforgiving. JR, Owen's dead. you're back in 10-9-8. Ross has since called it the toughest thing he has ever done in his entire career, spanning decades. The following night's Raw tribute show featured an intensely emotional broadcast, during which Ross welcomed viewers to a unique program filled with candid and deeply personal sentiments from everyone involved. His words echoed with genuine heartbreak that touched millions. "I hope that I can be as good of a man as him, so I can see him again someday." Few people in professional wrestling shared a bond with Owen Hart quite like Jeff Jarrett. They weren't just successful tag team partners who captured championships together, they were true kindred spirits. With fathers who were both wrestling promoters, they shared a rare understanding of the business and its many complexities, one that very few others could ever truly comprehend on the same level.
Had paralleled so much. His father was a wrestling promoter. My father was a wrestling promoter. But for me to get the opportunity to travel with him and really know the human being, the father, the husband, the friend.
Jarrett's final interaction with Owen came at a Chicago house show on May 22, 1999, just one day before the tragedy unfolded. That night, the two teamed together against Edge and Christian in what would become Owen's final match. True to form, Owen was up to his usual hilarious tricks. He deliberately wore mismatched boots that looked absurd and had secretly hidden metal coat hangers beneath the ring, planning to use them as improvised comedy props during the match. Tragically, the following night at Kemper Arena, Jarrett was backstage preparing for his own segment when everything went catastrophically wrong. A stage manager told him that Owen was heading to the ring for his entrance and estimated there were still 15 to 18 minutes before Jarrett's segment was scheduled to begin. Just 3 minutes later, Jarrett was suddenly called to perform. What happened next has haunted him ever since, and likely will for the rest of his life. Jarrett went out and delivered his scheduled promo and segment while Owen's lifeless body was wheeled past him backstage on a stretcher. When Jarrett entered the ring, he immediately sensed that something was terribly wrong. The top rope was loose, and there was a visible dip in the mat where Owen had struck with devastating force. Yet the show demanded that he continue performing as if nothing had happened.
A dark time in my life 2 years ago, and a lot of feelings that I'd suppressed, quite frankly, from over the years, because in our industry it is next town, next show, next town, next show, next town, next show, and so in one essence, a lot of that was stuffed down into me.
It took Jarrett nearly 18 years to fully process the overwhelming grief of losing his best friend. The wrestling industry's relentless, unforgiving pace, next town, next show, next town, next show, forced him to bury his deepest emotions until they finally surfaced years later during his own personal recovery journey. Since then, he has remained in close contact with Owen's family, exchanging Christmas cards with Martha every year and speaking at length with her about the tragedy and Owen's enduring legacy. Charles Wright, known to millions of wrestling fans around the world as the Godfather, carried a uniquely painful burden from that tragic night. He wasn't just Owen's colleague and friend in the locker room, he was supposed to be his opponent in the ring that very evening. The two were scheduled to wrestle for the prestigious Intercontinental Championship, with Owen booked to win the title and begin a new chapter in his career.
I dropped to Owen that night that Owen died, but they were trying to get it off of me because it didn't mean anything, because I had the girls, and all the belt meant was the girls would come out with the belt like a ring girl.
Wright spent the entire day with Owen at Kemper Arena, joking and interacting casually, just as they always did whenever they crossed paths. In Wright's own heartfelt words, Owen was one of the best wrestlers we've ever seen, a great guy, a really nice guy who helped me all the time throughout my career. Deep down, Wright always knew that the world had lost someone truly special and irreplaceable that night. Yet when Wright tries to recall the specific details of the tragedy, his memory becomes frustratingly fragmented and hazy. He was backstage in the gorilla position, rehearsing entrance timing with his valets, when someone suddenly announced, panic unmistakable in their voice, that Owen had fallen from the rafters.
Missed the nicest guy in the world that helped me all the time. People always ask me, did Owen ever rib you? And I'm like, if he did, Owen was so good you wouldn't have known anyway. So
Wright immediately called his wife in shock, later realizing that trauma had erased much of that night from his memory. He admitted that she often reminded him of things he said and did that he could no longer recall, the horror having fragmented his mind's ability to process events. The Rock. When Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson first heard something had happened to Owen, he assumed it was just another one of Owen's famous pranks. That belief shattered instantly when he saw EMTs performing CPR on Owen's lifeless body. The Rock prayed over him, helped load him onto the stretcher, and rode in the ambulance, witnessing the failed resuscitation efforts firsthand. Minutes before his scheduled match with Triple H, The Rock was told he's gone. Despite overwhelming grief, he performed that night, believing Owen, a true professional, would have wanted the show to continue. The following night on Raw, he delivered an emotional tribute, speaking directly to Owen's son, Oyai. Years later, he honored Owen again, calling him one of his closest friends whose spirit lives on forever. JBL shared a dressing room with Owen that day and witnessed the aftermath firsthand. Seeing Owen's pale, gray complexion as he was stretchered backstage, JBL knew instantly he wouldn't survive. Backstage descended into chaos. JBL recalled seeing Vince McMahon in rare, silent grief, unable to speak through tears. With McMahon overwhelmed, Jerry Briscoe stepped in, giving wrestlers the choice to perform or step aside. JBL was then tasked with informing The Undertaker and Steve Austin of Owen's death. The Undertaker's reaction was pure shock, his legendary character suddenly confronted with real mortality. Jerry the King Lawler sat beside Jim Ross as the arena went dark for Owen's Blue Blazer entrance, eyes fixed on the Titantron, moments before wrestling entertainment was forever replaced by devastating reality.
And as the promo was going, I just saw something. I couldn't say that I saw it. Saw Owen actually fall. I just saw like a blur, and I saw the referee. The referee was Jimmy Corderas. I saw the referee grab his head and sort of start staggering across the ring.
Lawler reacted instantly. He elbowed Jim Ross and mouthed the words, "He fell." With their microphones still live, he jumped from his chair and sprinted to the ring. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. As Lawler looked down at Owen, he watched his face turn gray before his eyes, the blood settling as his heart stopped beating. Paramedics quickly removed Owen's blue blazer mask, confirming what Lawler already knew. Despite the horror, Lawler later reflected fondly on their 1993 Memphis feud and has long advocated for Owen's rightful induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. Mark Henry. While others focused on the tragedy, Mark Henry remembered Owen for what made him unforgettable, his unmatched sense of humor. Henry recalled Owen's elaborate pranks, including a notorious one where Owen impersonated an IRS agent and prank-called Henry's mother, threatening to seize her house. The reaction was so intense Henry had to stop the joke before it went too far. Owen didn't stop there. He also pranked Henry's family, manager, and even invented absurd wrestling moves mid-match just to make Henry laugh. During one battle royal, Henry laughed so hard he dropped to his knees in the ring and was reprimanded for breaking character. "Owen had me laughing until I couldn't breathe," Henry said. Beyond the jokes, Owen also taught him professionalism, respect, and locker room etiquette. Deborah Marshall's final memories of Owen came from a Chicago house show, the same one Jeff Jarrett recalled. Her stories reinforce what everyone knew: Owen Hart had an unstoppable need to make everyone around him laugh.
I remember the last time I worked with him, we were in Chicago, and it was at a house show. And I remember he had one boot that didn't match the other boot, and then he had hidden coat hangers up underneath the ring beforehand. And then I just remember he's like digging out these coat hangers and using them, and he would just do bizarre, funny stuff all the time.
Deborah remembered Owen as an unstoppable prankster. He once swapped her sunglasses with an ugly pair just to watch her walk confidently to the limo, and on another occasion delayed photos so fans would swarm her. On the night of the tragedy, she heard screams, saw Owen on a stretcher, and struggled to hold herself together afterward. She later questioned WWE's decision to continue the show, while fondly recalling Owen's small quirks, like always buckling his seatbelt. Mick Foley described Owen as one of his closest friends, someone whose conversations were about life and family, not wrestling. Foley recalled Owen's kindness to fans, his legendary pranks, including intentionally putting on a terrible match to mess with a journalist, and has remained one of his strongest advocates, calling tributes to Owen long overdue.